Hey, welcome back, everybody. We've got some more Streets of New Capenna set review for you here. Today we're going to be going over the color red. I'm joined by Hamhawks42. Hamhawks, where can we find you at?
You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhawks42. I'm also on YouTube and the Twitters. Hamhawks42 is the name on all those places. Yeah, you just Google Hamhawks42, you'll find me. I'm kind of all over the place, doing my best to get the signal out there. But yeah, thank you, Pizza. It's a delight as always.
Yeah, man, always a good time hanging out with you. I'm not gonna lie, it feels good to not be tired doing this set review.
It is a little bit earlier, so yeah, for this one, which is nice. You're right.
All right, so we're gonna be going over red. Red usually, the color of aggression, burn spells, all that good jazz. So we got some interesting ones for you today. Antagonize, one colorless and a red instant. Target creature gets +4/+3 until end of turn. Just limited card. Doesn't give trample either. I mean, this card is just fine. It
Yeah,
doesn't do anything. I don't really think.
it,
I'm not
it's a
gonna
comment.
antagonize the viewers here and go
No,
over too
exactly.
much.
Yeah, combat tricks are one of those things I tend to avoid even in limited, and this one didn't move the needle for me. Yeah.
All right, so the next card we have is actually kind of like a pretty cool mythic. Arcane Bombardment. 4 colorless, 2 red enchantment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard, then copy each card exiled with this card. You may cast any number of copies without paying their mana cost. So essentially, this is like a storm that has a lid on it, and then you store it when you get it off, and like the lid comes off, and all your other spells go off, and the more you do it, obviously, the more spells you get under, the more spells are going to keep going off, and yeah, I mean that's kind of like about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a cool card. I don't think it's going to see any competitive play because you literally have to spend 6 mana and get no benefit the first time that you play it.
What do you mean? The
That's
artwork's cool.
The artwork is cool, and the artwork depicts what you're doing quite well, because it is just shotgunning spell or like machine gunning spells at your opponent or just into the game over and over and over again, which is really cool. And like this reminds me a lot of Mirror March, which was a similar enchantment that it didn't do anything when it first hit the battlefield, but then
Mm-hmm.
when you played a creature, it had an opportunity to copy that creature a ton of times based on coin flips. So when it fires, it's great. Arcane Bombardment is definitely better than Mirror March, in my opinion, because you have more control over it. The exiled card is random, but if you have good spells in your deck that are going to give you value at any point in the game, you're going to be able to pull those out of your graveyard for recursive value over and over with this later in the game and just fire off a ton of spells and just overwhelm your opponent with the value you can create from that. So if you've constructed your deck well, Arcane Bombardment could be very good, but I don't think it's good enough to see competitive play at all because of how many hoops you have to jump through and how expensive it is. But this is a great jank build around as the kind of as a control finisher in a janky brew. This has an opportunity to be really cool, and I'm looking forward to brewing around it.
Definitely feels like a Stratus Stone card to me. I
Totally.
think you
Yep.
guys talked about that the other day,
Yep.
another card, and this one I'm like, yeah, we just get some board wipes, get some spells, get some land destruction, or get a bunch of land destruction spells under this, and then all of a sudden you just blow up all their lands at once, and then
Yep.
before you
No,
know it, it's been a bombardment.
Indeed. And there are a lot of great jank content creators out there, Strider Stone being one of them, who are going to be working with this card. And definitely going to see, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and see what we can come up with this because it definitely has that written all over it.
Oh yeah, so definitely feels mythic, but at the end of the day, not a card I'm going to be playing in limited.
Oh,
And
goodness, no.
in terms of constructed magic, we're talking more of like something that's more fun, or more like a brawl EDH type of deck where you do have the time to kind of build up to this. But in terms of some top tables, I'm gonna go out. I'm just gonna say it. I don't think that this is gonna be in any top tables near you anytime soon,
Mm-hmm. No, I think
unless you
that's
kind of
correct.
go off with like some extra turns. So who knows?
Yeah, that'd be something.
I don't want to say never, but you know. Our next card is actually a common, and it is a spicy one, considering that we already have it in standard. Big score, aka unexpected windfall, but this one's a little bit easier to cast. 3 colorless and a red instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you have to discard a card. You draw 2 and create 2 treasure tokens. How do you feel about this card, Hamhawks? I mean, like at the end of the day, like I mean, it's a really great card.
Yeah,
And
Unexpected Windfall is a phenomenal card.
it's
That's
like an
doing a
upgrade, right?
Yeah, Unexpected Windfall is a phenomenal card that a lot of decks really enjoy having. They that are like a snap four of in a lot of different combo decks out there or control decks running red. And so the idea of getting four additional copies of them potentially is really cool. I don't know if eight is a little too much for some of those decks, but running six, yeah, I could totally see that. And yeah, this is easier to cast. It's effectively the exact same ability. Yeah, it's I think it's bonkers that they did a functional reprint this soon after the original was printed. Like that seems crazy to me, but here we are, and it's a great card. There's no question about it. It's just a phenomenal common.
I think the fact that this is printed now is almost like a testament to how long it takes them to catch up with like how far back they are in design. Maybe they
Mm.
thought that Unexpected Windfall was going to be one of those cards that probably doesn't really get played. You
Oh,
know, like
maybe.
most of the time, like those rummage effects never got played, but I think it's because they actually cost mana. With these treasure cards, technically every time that there's like a treasure attached to a card, you're reducing it by a mana. This one,
Yeah,
you're reducing it by 2 mana. So, I mean, you know, if you can bank those treasures for later, or you can cast this card and then cast a 2-drop in the same, you know, end step or same turn or whatever. And I mean, that's just powerful. I think we've come to learn that that's powerful, but if you really do think about it, it hasn't been that long. It's been since like what, the D&D set, maybe since like
yeah.
Allrun's reign.
Hmm.
Um, you know, but even post like D&D sets. So yeah, I mean, I could see them printing this card and then, you know, maybe not thinking that the other card was probably going to get played. So for us, we're looking at it as, oh my goodness, I can't believe, you know, this, you're right, it's a functional reprint that's like better. But in
Yeah,
reality, maybe it's just them being like, oh, we didn't think that the other card would be played. So who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that goes behind that.
yeah.
But at the end of
And
the day, this is definitely like a constructed staple, right?
100%. Yeah, no, this is one of those, and it's a common, so there's no reason if you even if you're not cracking packs of New Capenna, just craft it. Like you're just yeah, if you're running anything with red, there's a good chance there's a place for this, unless it's like straight up red aggro. But like aside from that, in any mid range list, in any control list,
I played
big
this in red
score is gonna
aggro.
fit.
Play like 2 of them. It's 3
Fair
colorless and
enough.
a red. Whatever. Let's go. Let's go to town.
I love it.
Draw some
Also, I
gold
do.
spans. Get to them. Let's go.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Totally. I do want to also give a shout out to the art. Like this rogue character just swimming Scrooge McDuck style through a bunch of gold. Love it. It's just that's pretty fun, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's the flavor of this set's great. The artwork's great. The cards are
Hmm.
awesome. This card's just gonna be a common that everybody loves. Everybody
Yeah.
plays.
You're gonna see
Pauper.
it all over the place.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna see it all over the place. I mean, this card just seems still so absurd to me. The fact it's 3 colorless now is even
Right.
way better. So our next card here, we have an uncommon. Quite an interesting card. It's got a good amount of text on it. Call in a professional. 2 colorless and a red instant. Players can't gain life this turn. Damage can't be prevented. Call in a professional. Deals 3 damage to any target. This being instance good. The mana cost not.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, if it was 2 mana, it'd be way better than Skullcrack. And I
Yeah.
think Skullcrack's just a great card in Modern for burn decks. I mean, limited, I'm playing this card a lot, right? I mean, players can't gain life and then prevent damage. Of course, you know, the old Bone Crusher clause and then get in there to kill something 3 toughness. I mean, other than limited, I don't really see this card getting played.
Yeah. I can see it potentially as a sideboard card if shield counters become a thing
Hmm.
in the meta, because shield counters prevent damage, and so this gets around that. Also, cards like Angel of Agony prevent damage, and this gets around that too. So I can appreciate the benefit of getting around certain effects like that. So I can see this as a sideboard option in certain metas. It'll be interesting to see if that's the meta that we're going to be in after Capenna drops. But yeah, I feel like if you're not getting value out of the life loss, life gain hosing, or the damage, preventing prevention, if you're not getting value out of those, it's not worth it in constructed play. But I mean, 3 damage in limited, that's 3 damage. Sweet. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
take that
instant speed.
sometimes.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
best part about this card. I mean, I played Karanos Bolt back in original Theros is like one of my favorite cards of draft. That's actually like my favorite set. But other than limited, I mean, yeah, it's we'll see. We'll see if it
We'll
gets played
see.
because of like the cyborg capabilities of it. But
Mm-hmm.
Overall, mostly just like a really, really solid limited card that I don't mind taking early in the draft. Next card, pretty much a reprint. Not really much to say here. Daring Escape. I think it's had like 3 different names. 1 red instant. Target creature gets +1/+0. Gains first strike until on a turn. Scry 1. Let's move on to the next card.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Devilish Valet. Pretty interesting card here. We got a little bit excited about this for in our spoilers there.
Mm-hmm.
Devilish Valet, 2 colorless and a red. Devil Warrior, 1/3 trample haste. It has Alliance, which is whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you get a trigger. This specifically, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, double this creature's power until end of turn. So essentially, you can, in Historic, you can kind of get your Heliod combo and make a bunch of tokens and then make this huge. And then just kill your opponent in like Alchemy or Standard. Potentially either like a red deck wins type of style deck where you're going off with like a bunch of 1-drops. Like the Kumanos or the Samurai. I can't remember what it's called. Apologies.
The Reinforced Ronin.
Yeah, Reinforced Ronin. You know, you can
Mm-hmm.
continually keep getting your Alliance triggers for stuff. But, yeah, I mean, this card just screams combo. Other than that, it's not good on rate. The abilities are good. The creature types are also somewhat relevant, specifically the Warrior type. I mean, Devil could also be, you know, somewhat relevant depending on what planeswalkers you play, anything like that. But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about this card?
I think the fact that it has trample and haste make it fantastic. And in a situation where you're creating multiple tokens, like you're saying, any of those situations, or even using something as simple as Cabaret Charm to create 2/1/1s, you know, all of a sudden that bumps this thing up to a 4/3. You know, that's not bad. And if you can get another creature down, that becomes an 8/3 with trample. So I think in situations where you're running the Heliod Scurryout combo, or where you're running Scoot Swarms with multiple land drops, like those types of situations, this thing gets unreasonably big and just wins the game on the spot. And a lot of those decks struggle with, like, a lot of them can do really cool combo things, but then they have to wait a turn to be able to attack with the creatures and actually win the game. Devilish Valet just makes that irrelevant. Like, if you can do a crazy combo thing, create a bunch of tokens, you just win. You
Yeah,
know,
could we see
that's
the
kind of
return
nice.
of Brushfire Elemental?
Ooh, maybe,
Like a
maybe.
landfall type deck, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with the Scoot Swarms and stuff, maybe just like the red-green type, or even like I really like your idea of the Naya deck with the Cabaret, where we are seeing the introduction of a lot more token producers. So the fact
Mm-hmm.
that those exist now gives a chance for this card to kind of shine a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. And if we're in a situation where you can flood the board with tokens, this thing is going to be insane. But if we're in an environment that's hospitable to the, or inhospitable to that strategy, then I don't think Devilish Valet is going to do much at all.
Yeah, I can definitely agree to that. Yeah, so overall, I might actually take this in limited. It's not terrible. It really depends on where I'm at. It's kind of the same for constructed, where like the floor is like rough, right? It's like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the floor of like, you know, an old apartment building. But then your ceiling, like your ceiling, you know, pretty good skyscraper there. You know, it's pretty
Yeah,
tall up
totally.
there. You know, it can definitely just kill your opponent out of nowhere with like a land trigger from like a
Right?
Scoot Swarm, like you said, or some token producer. So we'll see where this card ends up. Our next card here, we have another common. It's actually a pretty good common, I think, for limited. I was looking at it. 2 colorless and a red Exhibition Magician. Human Wizard 2/1. When this card enters the battlefield, you choose one. Create a 1/1 green-white citizen creature token or a treasure. Yeah, for limited, this card makes 2 bodies, or it ramps you. In constructed, there's better cards.
Yeah.
That's kind of just what it comes down to. Yeah, there's really not much else to say about this. You get your
Yeah,
token strategies, your token synergies, so.
and I mean, this triggers Alliance twice. So for the Devilish
Mm-hmm.
Valley or other Alliance creatures, that's pretty great. And treasure tokens attached to bodies is always good. And it is a human wizard, which might be relevant in other formats. But yeah, at 3, it's a little bit much. I want this to be a 1/1 for 2 with that ability. But here we are. It's a 3-drop.
That'd be really good.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that like the more that I look at this, even I was looking at it the other day and I was like, man, that card's strong. But I'm looking
Yeah.
at it now and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I just think that most red decks want this. I mean, this literally jumps you from 3 to 5, or it fixes your mana, and on top of that, like, you know, most of the time when we see these cards for limited, it's like 4 mana for a 3/2, and then it makes a 1/1. This one's a little bit cheaper, so I feel like that that definitely has some standing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go ahead and move on to our next one here. We have an uncommon, which is actually pretty interesting. It's actually it's a treasure, but it's not a token. So we got glittering stockpile, 2 colorless and a red, artifact treasure, tap to add a red, then you put a stash counter on it. You can tap sack it to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of stash counters on it. I think that this card is like just a phenomenal EDH card. First off,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of constructed, I don't think that we're gonna see it unless we see like maybe like a rampy type mid-range deck that wants to play this and then maybe pay off where you can sack it and spend all your mana on something crazy. I don't know. I'm not really sure what. Like some dragons is like the
Yeah,
first
so
thing that I'm thinking of, but
some dragons or like a crackle with power, like a huge X spell, like
mm-hmm.
having a nice stash build up for that could be really sweet. Um, yeah,
Some kind
I
of
like this.
activated ability.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think this card is very interesting. It reads like a 2022 mana battery. Like I don't know if you remember those cards from back in the day where you had the
Yeah,
like
I do. Yeah, it was a
yeah
4 mana. They were all 4 mana, and then you paid 3 mana, I think it was, to put a charge counter in it, and then or something like that, or
it
one.
was something like that.
The
Yeah.
mana abilities, I can't remember how they were, but you would put a counter on it, and then later on you can pay another type amount of mana and then remove all the counters to add all that mana, and each color had one. So it is kind of
Yep.
interesting to see just red get one here, you know?
Yeah, it's very similar, except in that case, you had to pay mana to put the charge counters on. You had to like, basically pay mana and save it for later, was the
Mm-hmm.
idea. Whereas with Glittering Stockpile, it just gives you mana and you get to save mana for later. So, I mean, that's that's definitely the modern day design
Yeah,
philosophy,
that
right?
is the
Where,
modern day mana rock. That's how far we've come. Like even mana
right?
rocks, like it's either gonna have a comes into play or lately we've seen a lot of mana rocks that loot or draw
Hmm.
cards and are like on theme with what's going on. And I mean this one's on theme, but this one's also probably one of the best ones that they printed so far.
Yeah,
I'm
got
kind of
great
surprised
upside.
it's not colorless. You know,
Yeah, and with it being a treasure, like that had some cool synergies as well with some other treasure
Goldspan.
Goldspan. Yeah, that comes to mind. Actually, I'm curious how Goldspan's worded because for the longest time, I always, with a normal treasure, it just creates, it normally creates one.
I think Goldspan says just treasures, right?
Yeah, treasures you control have tap, sacrifice it, add 2 mana of any one
Yeah.
color, is how
It's
that's
good
worded.
with Kalane, right? The
Yes.
black red legendary.
Oh, with Kalane, that's fantastic. But,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, actually, yeah, Glittering Stockpile with Kalane would be dope.
Yeah, because you can have a turn where you're just like, oh, by the way, I just, make like 8 black mana, and then all of a sudden I'm casting all these creatures, and they are all, it was off of treasure mana,
It's all off treasure mana.
like, that's,
Woo!
yeah,
I
that
like
seems
that.
pretty
I
good,
like that
like
a
a
lot.
treasure
Yeah,
dragons. Maybe I'll bring back the old black-red dragon deck for alchemy, but,
let's go.
I feel like we talked a lot about glitter and stockpile, but at the end
Yes.
of the day, it's a
Yeah.
really powerful, effect, and you're right, Ham, that's a really great way to put it. Looks like we're even getting mana rocks updated with 2022 magic, kind of my saying lately,
Hmm.
for trying to review these cards. Goldhound, talk about like treasure being on something random. So we have artifact creature treasure dog, a red 1/1, first strike menace. Sacrifice this card, add 1 mana of any color. I actually think this card is a lot. So it might not be that this card is better than we think, but it may be that it's more situationally good where we don't have any 1-drop mana elves. But man, if you just get this down and then maybe get like a Reckless Stormseeker down on turn 2, like, or ramp into something on turn 4 even, or, the card has first strike and menace, so it has upside. I mean, it has 2 abilities at least. I guess they're really pushing this card, so it's kind of just like how I feel about it at the end of the day. I mean, I think it's really good. I like
Yeah.
it a lot.
I
I think
think
we're gonna see
this
it.
is crazy strong. It's a great blocker and attacker, and it's a strike it rich, which was already a great card, or just like create a treasure for one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this card is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and again,
Limited, I think it's gonna be
it's the
decent
treasure type.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, having that treasure type is like really interesting. They're really pushing treasures quite a bit. So
yeah.
yeah, I think that this card has pretty decent floor actually. Nice little living room. Just moved in.
Absolutely.
Um, but the ceiling on it's even bigger. Where if you can get if your deck is like full of powerful 3-drops and any colors really. I mean, I just mentioned one card. I mean, imagine going into Tovolar on turn 2, just like an example. I mean,
Right.
there's all kinds of things you can do with this turn 2, turn 3. So I think it's going to end up being a potentially powerful card. If not, I mean, not really losing too much value of us thinking that that's a solid
Right.
card, because I think it is actually a pretty solid built card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our next card here is an interesting take on a card everybody knows that exists. So we have Horde Hauler, 3 colorless, a red, 5/5 trample vehicle. Crew 3. Whenever this card deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token for each artifact they control. So essentially, it's Dockside's car.
Right.
So we have Dockside's train here. I think that the Crew 3 is a little... this isn't Chariot. Let's get that out of the way.
Yes, agreed.
And most of the time, it's probably not going to ramp you. And on rate, let's be real here. 4 mana 5/5s with trample are kind of just fine. Crew 3 is a little bit too high. Maybe if it was Crew 2. EDH, yeah, this card's fantastic. I mean, you get it down and you're probably going to be slapping a couple players and maybe getting like 2-3 treasures along the way or more.
Yeah, and when you're in a pod with, 3 other people, one of them is going to be using mana rocks to ramp. So yeah, you can slap them and get 3-4 treasures, no problem. Like, that's going to be very easy to do. So
Yeah, 5/5
yeah,
still
I think
sizable.
it's EDH. Yeah, is where this card lives. Yeah. In
Yeah,
standard,
pretty
I don't
much.
anticipate it making a big waves in standard, because there are more efficient ways to be creating treasures, as crazy as that is. Yeah, it's just
Treasures, the new energy.
totally. Yeah, they're everywhere. It's just part
Treasures,
of the
like
deal.
literally the new. It's like I feel like treasures isn't the thing that you want to be attaching to cards, because it's literally, like I said earlier, where like it makes all your cards like that much mana less when you cast them.
Yep.
Especially if they're instant speed, you get to bank that mana. It's kind of like absurd, but this card, I'm just, I don't know. It'll be interesting if I see it across the table from me. I'll be like, oh, cool.
Yeah, this is
Guess I
what
gotta
I
kill their
want.
3 pirate stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I do want to. I want to see a brew with this in there, but I don't. I don't think it's quite got what it takes to make it into the competitive scene.
So our next card here, just some more kind of not playable cards. I'm just gonna read it here. Involuntary employment, 3 colorless and a red sorcery. Gain control of a creature until on a turn. Untap it. It gains haste. You make a treasure. We've seen these cards every set. This one makes a treasure.
I think the making a treasure is like one of the more impressive upsides from this kind of effect, but threaten is threaten. It's just part of the deal. It's fine in certain circumstances, but
I'm
yeah.
not gonna be threatened that I'll see that in constructed play. So
Yeah, no, not at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna try to make a Rakdos sacrifice deck with things like this work, but I always do, and it never works. So yeah, like with threaten specifically, Rakdos sacrifice, if you're using for value, is great.
yeah,
Like,
Rakdos Sack is great.
Racksack is great, but when you specifically are trying to threaten your opponent's stuff, steal it, and then sacrifice it for value, the steal effects are just too expensive to really be efficient in a lot of cases. And this being at 4 mana is no exception. Yeah.
Yeah. Our next card here, we have a Jackhammer. That's it. That's the joke. That's it. Jackhammer. That's
On
it.
a Magic the Gathering card. There it is.
It's made it. We finally can make our construction crew deck. Jackhammer, red, colorless equipment. Equip creature gets +2/+0. Equip 2, colorless. I really like the flavor text. Subtly is overrated. Oh yeah, I would definitely say so, considering that this card exists. Let's just move on. I think we have enough jokes about. I don't think we need to jackhammer the point anymore.
It's exactly. It's limited. It's a bad bone splitter. Like, in certain limited decks, it's fine. That's it. Like, yeah.
Our next card is actually interesting. We got Jaxus the Troublemaker, 3 colorless and a red. Legendary creature, human warrior, 2/3. Red, tap, discard a card. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control, gains haste. And whenever this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. It has Blitz, colorless, and a red Blitz. If you cast a spell for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So essentially, this card is Kiki Jiki, but it costs 1 more mana. And you get value when the token actually dies. So, Hammer... I think that the effect is really powerful, and Kiki Jiki exists, but I think Kiki Jiki existing is because it has, like, 2 other parts on the saga, and it's a mana cheaper for 4 mana. Sure. This card is really awesome, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to see it, in play too often.
Sure, I get that. I have a couple of cool like notes on this. One of which is the blitz cost is very real. So you could get a one turn Kiki Jiki effect for 3 mana effectively by paying the blitz cost for 2, getting Jaxus down, and then immediately hitting the ability. So that's kind of cool. It's also interesting that you have to discard a card when you create the token. But if you're blitzing in Jaxus and then you create the token copy, that token also draws you a card when it dies. So you're actually up 2 cards, or you're at least at parity because both cards replace themselves, which is pretty bonkers in my opinion. The other cool thing about Jaxus is you can target legendary creatures with this, whereas
Mm-hmm.
Kiki Jiki you can't.
Yeah. I'm not sure in like standard alchemy historic how often that's gonna come up. Obviously, there's some cards out there that if you do get like 2 of them, even for like a split
Hmm.
second, and get like a death trigger or something, you kind of start doing some crazy shenanigans. But um, I just feel like that's more like EDH type of situation, commander type of
Sure.
situation where you're probably gonna see that. I just feel like 4 mana. I can't agree with you more. With the blitz, I think the blitz is what saves this card. In
Totally.
terms of like standard play or anything like that, like being able to just get it out for 2 mana is fantastic. I mean, you just play it as like a 2 mana 2/3 and just get in and redraw right if you need to, if you are really that desperate. I mean, you can do all kinds of things with this card. I think that potentially the fact that there's different options for it could end up leading to getting played in like standard or like tournament play type of situations on the
Yeah.
ladder. But um,
I have some ideas. I have some ideas with this.
yeah, I just feel
I
like
think
it's a
it
janky card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a
Like
little bit. It's got some jank potential for sure.
a little
Yeah,
bit.
and but at the same time, like with Fable the Mirror Breaker, like I thought, like okay, this card is good. It does a lot of great things, but at the end of the day, how good is Kiki Jiki? Well, it turns out Kiki Jiki is fantastic,
Hmm.
and you can do some crazy things with it. And so I think Jaxus is going to prove in the right situation, this could be devastating. But it's got to be the right situation, and I've got some ideas on those situations. So twitch.tv/hammox42, come check it out. Uh, Anyway,
But
but I think this card's really cool. I like it. I like the design.
yeah, I think it's cool. I love the art. I really
Hmm.
just love everything about it. I mean, red's one of my favorite colors, so I think the card's awesome. I'm gonna be really interested if we end up seeing it in competitive play. Our
Hmm.
next card is actually, I like it for limited. Has a lot of synergies with sacrifice type decks. We have Light 'em Up, colorless, and a red sorcery. Casualty 2, so you got to sacrifice a creature, power 2 or greater. If you do, you can copy this spell. You don't have to, you can choose to. Then it deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So it's not an any target type damage spell, but let's say 2 mana, you got a card that has like upside to dying, or you have some other cards that have upside to dying triggers. You casualty something away, you can kill something for toughness, or you can even divide it up and kill 2 different things. I think that this card is really close to being constructed playable. I think, call me crazy, but an uncommon instant casualty 1, I think, would have brought this to standard.
Yes, I agree with
Like
that.
that would have been crazy, right? Like I know I say this all the time, but man, second the eye twitch just feels so good, right? Like you second eye twitch,
Mm.
sack a shambling ghast, the red vampire that comes in pings them and you get a blood. I can't
Yeah,
remember what that
Voldaren
card's.
Epicure. Yep.
Yeah, Epicure. Yep. Yeah, I mean
Hmm.
all kinds of stuff, but unfortunately, I think the casualty 2 keeps this in limited range.
Yeah.
Um, Even if it was like sorcery casualty 1, but I still think it's like a really powerful card for limited. I mean, being able to snipe 2 cards off of you getting 2 cards too, essentially sacking maybe a card you get some value out of, or I mean, just 2 mana, 2 damage is fine. Like if that's the floor, that's okay. You're probably still gonna kill something that your opponent has, but I think the ceiling for this is a lot higher. Where copying it, doing all kinds of stuff. I could see them not printing it as an instant because, excuse me, potentially like an instant speed spell like that probably would have been kind of a blowout.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Where maybe it is pushing it more to like uncommon or rare territory. But other than that, I mean, light them up. I'm just gonna be picking it in limited, right?
Totally. Yeah.
All right. And oops, our next card here, we have Mayhem Patrol, colorless, and a red 1/2 Devil Warrior Menace. Whenever this card attacks, target creature gets +1/+0 until on a turn. You can blitz it for a colorless and a red as well. I read this and I was like, wow, this is like a strong red, like common. Like
Hmm.
it has menace, and on top of that, you can start pumping other creatures. Like most of the time, yeah, it's just a 2 mana 2/2 with menace when it attacks, but being able to like pump something else, like that's some huge upside. And on top of that, like later in the game, you can just blitz it and maybe give like a flying creature that extra point you need to get in lethal. I mean, I'm a big fan of cards like this. This is just like a solid, it's a warrior. I mean, man, Magic's come a long way. Like this 2-drop just does so much, right? Like it really does so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the cool thing about Blitz is you get the creature in play for a turn, and then when it dies, you draw a card. So it's similar to almost cycling your creature, which is kind of nice. So yeah, like you're saying, late in the game, you can buff it up, and if your opponent somehow survives, which I mean, hopefully you're applying a lot of pressure, so hopefully that's not an option. But if they do, then you can draw into some more answers than on your end step. Assuming the Mayhem Patrol survives in combat even. So yeah, just a good card, especially in limited. I don't know that it's going to have a place in constructed, but in limited for sure, this card is going to be rock solid.
Yeah, I like it. I expect to see it a lot. I'm going to be drafting it. It looks like I'm probably just going to be drafting red and black quite a lot again.
Nice.
So our next card here, Plasma Jockey, 3 colorless and a red. Viasino. Ham, you're excited about Cephalids. I'm excited about this Viasino Warrior. It's a 3/1. Whenever it attacks, star creature an opponent controls can't block. Blitz, 2 colorless and a red. This is like I just need a playable. It's kind of how I feel about this card overall. It's not a constructed card, limited. I just need a playable. I mean, the blitz cost is a little bit cheaper. I mean, it's 3/1. You get it down, they maybe have to just trade with it, or they trade with something else. And
if you have Casualty 3 in your deck on something, being able to blitz this in and then hit it with a Casualty 3 after a decent attack, that could be a good line, but it's really situational. Yeah, so I'm not particularly sold on this card.
Yeah, that's really about how we feel about it. Our next card,
pretty darn medium.
Yeah, pretty medium. Our next card here is another rare. We have Professional Facebreaker, 2 colorless and a red. 2/3 menace. Whenever one or more creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token, so it only really triggers on one connect. Sacrifice a treasure. Exile the top card of your library. You can play that card this turn. During our spoilers, I said Stormseeker's probably the best red 3-drops, but maybe you can also play a couple of these. The fact that you're only really getting 1 treasure is fine. I mean, later in the game, you're going to want to just start trying to draw some more cards. I don't know where treasures are going to fit, so I can't really necessarily say, like, oh, this card's, like, not great. It's just a 2/3 for 3, really. There's definitely some upside later in the game. I don't really know how to evaluate this one. I don't really expect it to get played. I mean, if someone played this against me, I wouldn't be scared. So it's kind of how I feel about it,
That's a good evaluation. I think there's some pretty good upside in a deck that has a lot of treasures lying around. If you have a ton of treasure generators, this is an awesome way to turn those treasures into cards in the late game so that you can be playing spells with all the mana you've got just lying around. So if you have a deck that is capable of producing a lot of treasures very quickly and running out their hand, and you just need more action, this is a great way to help you get there. The actual treasure generating ability on it, I don't think is that great. I saw some people on Twitter, like the moment this came out, I was like, oh my goodness, the new Dockside is here. It's like, no. No, not at all. You play Professional Facebreaker alongside Dockside Extortionist because Dockside gives you a ton of treasures.
Yeah, and you can draw so many cards now.
Can draw you a ton of cards off of them. They are impulsive draws, so you do have to use them or lose them, but still, that's seeing cards. That's seeing options. So I think Professional Facebreaker is really strong in EDH, and if there is a standard deck, like, a Rakdos Kalane style deck that we're talking about, I think Professional Facebreaker could fit into that really nicely as a cool, maybe as a 2-of to draw cards late in the game. So
that is like a really great point. We did talk about Kalane with the Mana Rock, and I think that potentially, with some of the treasure cards in the Dungeons and Dragons set, the Forgotten Realms, maybe this card has a boost. I mean, it's a really great point. This card, it's not the best on rate, so it is more of like a synergy type card. It's more like a late game payoff type thing. So maybe we could see a deck that kind of deck make like a comeback and become maybe more like the spotlight. But other than that, I'd say that this is like pretty medium and high ceiling later in the game if you're a treasure deck. In limited,
Totally.
you're probably going to want to play it even if you're not at many treasures, because even if you just get like a couple treasures, there's upside.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Our next card here, Pugnacious Pugilist. 3 colorless and 2 red, 4/4 Ogre Warrior. Whenever this card attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red devil creature token with whenever this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target, so we just get a devil. Pretty cool card. Blitz, 3 colorless and a red. Yeah, I mean in limited I'm playing this card. It's just really good. It's a 4/4 that makes more tokens that deal more damage. I think this card this card seems really strong and limited. Other than that, in constructed, I don't really think it's gonna get played even at that blitz cost. Maybe if the blitz cost was 3 mana, I'd say there'd probably be an argument for getting played, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. No, I think you're 100% correct. I think it's just a little too expensive, and the impact on the board isn't enough for constructed. But for limited, yeah, I completely agree. For 5 mana, putting 5 power on the board in the first swing, great. Like that's not bad. And if it survives, it's going to be producing more and more devils. I mean, your opponent has to deal with this in the game of limited, which is exactly what you want. So
yeah, the devil's attacking, so
yeah, that's pretty great.
and it's not just like a once a turn trigger, or if you just control devil, don't do it. Just like you said, like if I get to attack with this once, I get a devil, and then if I get to attack with it again, I mean, yeah, this card feels really strong. I'm just like when I read it, I was like, yeah, this card is strong.
Yeah. No, in a game of limited, this is the 5-drop you want for sure.
Telling you, red black casualty deck, like
I want to see it.
I'm looking for it.
Let's make it happen.
Next card, we got another uncommon here. Pyre, Sledge, Arsonist, 2 colorless and a red. Viasino Shaman. I love me some Viasinos. 2/2, colorless, tap it. This card deals X damage to any target where X is the number of permanents you've sacrificed this turn. I think this is a really fantastic limited casualty payoff, but for constructed, I actually think its base mana cost is a little too much.
Yeah. This feels kind of like a fixed Mayhem Devil, and it's fine, again, if you're running a lot of treasures. So, yeah, in a casualty deck or in a deck, because it does count on any treasure tokens that you sacrificed as well. So I think that's meaningful. But, yeah, I agree that you kind of have to jump through some hoops. And the fact that you have to tap the Arsonist and pay mana in order to activate the ability is kind of frustrating. Like, that's just a bummer. I don't know how else. It feels like if this was the Mayhem Devil ability, where you just pinged every time you sacrifice something, I would like it so much more. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, as it stands, in limited as a payoff to using like treasure tokens or casualty, maybe. Like I can see that. 2/2 for 3 is just not where you want to be these days, though. Like that stat line is really a bummer.
I feel like I'm gonna lose this, or I'm gonna beat a lot of people with this card just because of what you said specifically. Like, you just like, oh, I cast a spell. Oh, I just how about I sack the treasure to activate the ability too while I'm at it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this card really gets out of control every turn. Like if it's unchecked, you kind of can just start killing each one of your opponent's creatures if your casualties are your type of treasure. So I think there's all kinds of synergies for it in limited, but yeah, in constructed, I mean this card's just yeah, it's not Mayhem Devil.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not Mayhem Devil. I mean, this is the kind of thing I would love to build around, but it's one of those situations where if you can consistently sacrifice 4 or 5 permanents a turn, which you really want to be doing with this, you're going to be getting so much value in other ways that you're already going to be winning. It's kind of the Halo Fountain problem. It's like if you're in this situation, you already won. You don't need this card to take it over the finish line.
Hey, speaking of Halo Fountain, you can use your Halo Fountain to untap it and use its ability again.
Interesting possibilities. Okay, all right. Maybe there's something there.
Don't be bringing up my favorite card now. No, I'm just kidding. The next card we have here is another limited type card, but even then it's kind of potentially a stretch. Ready to Rumble. You ready to rumble? 4 colorless and a red sorcery. Not at that mana cost. Ready to Rumble deals 5 damage to our creature or planeswalker. Destroy an artifact. You choose one of those. Yeah. Let's move on to the next card. That's really about
Fat Abrade.
Yeah. This Abrade is thick.
That is to say, it's very bad. Don't play this card.
Yeah, this card is not If you're desperate for some damage spells, you're gonna play it. But this next
Yeah.
card's interesting. Rivetier's Initiate, colorless and a red 2/2. You can pay a colorless and then hybrid black green. It gains Death Touch until end of turn. This card's great. Don't really think it's like crazy in terms of limited, but I mean just another 2-drop. If need be, you can put it in your black red deck, your black green deck, or excuse me, your red green deck, and it's still good. So, yeah, just like a curve filler. Not really much else to see here from the Initiate.
Yep, solid limited card. Don't expect to see it constructed.
The art definitely matches it.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of Viasinos, makes me happy. Speaking of, we get another one here. So we have Rivetier's Requisitor, colorless red, Viasino Rogue. Whenever this creature dies, create a treasure token. Blitz, 2 colorless and a red. It's a 3/1. I actually think it's okay on rate. It's not a bad card. If it dies, you get a treasure. The Blitz might end up being a little too pricey on it. I feel like I would have wanted like a 2 Blitz. Or dare I even say a 1 red Blitz, but
Ooh,
yeah, that would have been nuts, right? Hit your opponent and you ramp.
that'd be
How about I
fantastic.
bolt you and ramp? That probably would have been too good, but I mean, I don't really know if this card's gonna get played, but it's pushing it, right? It's pushed a little bit. Limited, I'm playing this card all day. I mean, I'm taking as many of these as I can.
Oh, totally.
It trades up and it ramps.
Yeah, and I think there could be some constructed decks that need this because, again, I find it really funny that the Riveteers, the Jund faction, have all these cool graveyard synergies and all these really powerful creatures. Meanwhile, the Maestros, the Grixis faction, have all of the sacrifice effects. I feel like a lot of Riveteer cards are going to find their way into Maestro's decks and vice versa, because like when you look at the Riveteers, they want to be recurring stuff out of their graveyard. They're creating treasure tokens. They're blitzing stuff in and getting recursive value out of all these different triggers. A lot of which occur when creatures die. And so, like, why wouldn't I be putting black and red casualty cards into those decks? And so I think we're going to see a lot of that. And I think Riveteer's Requisitioner could fit into that kind of model because it does have 3 power. So it triggers casualty 3 on a 2-drop, which is awesome. And it gives you a treasure token when it dies. Let's go. I mean, that's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I dig it.
We'll see. It's a 2-drop. I mean, it has a lot of things going for it.
Mhm.
I'm in the middle of it. I think like the floor is decent, but then I don't know how how much higher the ceiling goes. It's kind of like a basement where you go down to it and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I gotta crouch. It's kind of how I feel about this card where the potential's there, but I don't know if I gotta crouch when I play it.
That's fair.
So we'll see. It could end up being a pretty solid card. In limited, I'm definitely playing it though.
Mm-hmm.
This next card's pretty interesting. Rob the Archives, colorless and a red, sorcery, casualty 1. Exile top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. I like it a lot because you get to dig 4 cards, but you also kind of need a decent amount of mana to be able to play the cards that you exile. So essentially we end up with light up the stage, but you can light up the stage for more cards if you end up choosing to sacrifice, but you don't even get them until the next turn. You have to use them right now. So it's a really powerful card. I'm not going to say it's not going to get played because I think it's powerful, but I don't know if the sacrifice decks want this. Isn't like Deadly Dispute or cards like that just better?
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think Deadly Dispute or like Little Chat are just better than this. It feels like it definitely fits into that same style. It's trying to be those cards, but the difference, if it was until the end of your next turn, I would like this card so much more. It's not even funny because then all of a sudden
Oh, this card
you
has
get
a lot of upside, right?
yeah, that'd be fantastic. I mean, then all of a sudden that's a 2-mana Showdown of the Skulls. Like that. Maybe that's a little too much.
Yeah, that might. Well, I mean, it might end up being that it's too much, right? Like that does
Yeah.
sound really good.
Yeah. I mean, but hitting 4 cards off this, even if you only have 1 turn to use them, late in the game when you have mana lying around and you just need to dig for an answer or some kind of response or just that extra damage that you need to close the game out, this could get you there. So I'm not writing it off, but I don't think this is just a 4 of utility 2-drop. I think this is definitely a situational way to break top deck wars.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we'll see if like it has constructed capabilities. like I said, it's a powerful card, but I don't know if like it's just missing one thing to
Mm-hmm.
have it be light up the stage again, which is pretty much the card it's trying to imitate.
Yeah.
Our next card is another limited card here. We have Sizzling Soloists, 3 colorless and a red for a 3/2 human citizen. Has Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield in your control, target creature and opponent can't block this turn. If this is the second time it's happened this turn, that creature attacks during its controller's next combat phase. Yeah, limited card. I mean, if you get a couple creatures down, you make something not block and then make something else not attack. Or if you get 3 creatures down, you can make 2 things not block and then another thing attack. I mean, yeah, 3/2 for 4. Not really constructed playable card. Not really
Yeah,
much else
no,
to
I
say here.
agree. Statline's not great. The ability to manipulate combat is, I think, underrated in a lot of cases, but I don't know that this card is getting there. Like, it's a cool idea. I like it, and giving the trombone a solo. That's just, I mean,
Yeah,
whoever composed that, good
yeah,
work.
the ska
Like,
band there. Um,
exactly, gutsy choice. I like it. Yep.
so our next card here we have old sticky fingers. A red for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature has menace. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Whenever it dies, you draw a card. Um, just kind of an interesting aura. Like it wants to ramp you, and then it gives you value if the creature dies. So you get the card back from this dying, unless the creature's died on the spot when you play it. I mean, I don't even see situations where I'm gonna be playing this card. That's pretty much what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, I think it's a cool design, and if you're going to be playing auras, then this is a good one. Giving menace and the ramp ability and card draw. I mean, the fact that it replaces itself for one is pretty fantastic. So in some kind of maybe historic Luris deck, maybe there's a place for this. Um, I don't know, but yeah, I guess I don't know if this card has a home in the current environment, but I think the design of the card is cool, and I think there's a neat possibility here. But yeah, no, it's one of those cards where I look at it and like on first read, I'm like, this is great, right? And then I think about it and it's like, well, what deck do I put it in? I'm kind of drawing a blank on that.
Yeah. A lot of text, but
Hmm.
not really anything too powerful going on, which I think is what ends up making it not as good.
Yeah.
Our next card here I actually think is good. Essentially, this is as close as we're going to get to Lightning Bolt. We have Strangle, a red sorcery. This card deals 3 damage to a creature or planeswalker. I don't know if it not being instant kills it. We'll see though. Yeah, how do you feel about this card?
In limited, it's a slam dunk home run, no
Mm-hmm.
question. You just grab it. In constructed, I think there are going to be plenty of times where 3 damage for one is exactly what you need. So I can see a lot of good value for this because the fact that it's only 1 mana, like I can't stress that enough. 1 mana for 3 damage, like even with a Luminarch Aspirant that's had an opportunity to stick around for a little bit, this can still hit it. That's incredible. There are a lot of great. Actually, I mean, I'm just thinking of the mono white deck. Like this doesn't hit Adeline,
Yeah,
but it
that's the
hits
only
pretty
thing
much
it doesn't
everything
hit.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not against like the mono green deck. That's probably where you start to have trouble with the card.
Hmm.
I was thinking this isn't a 4 of. This is more like a 2 to 3 of, where maybe you can even sideboard 1 or 2, where it gives
Hmm.
you a little bit of an edge against planeswalkers or like an aggressive deck. But I don't think that you're like, oh, slam dunk, play 4 of this. This is the control. This is the answer
Right.
control is waiting for, or anything like that. Could even play in your aggressive decks for just a little bit of some tempo game where you just play this, kill their blocker, play another threat, and then keep attacking. And
Absolutely.
but yeah, I don't really see it. I could be wrong, but I see it more like in the 2 to 3 range more than anything. It's a good card
I
though,
can
and
agree with
you're
that.
right. In limited, it is total percent. Like I'm alley ooping it, and you're like slam dunking it over here.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a pack one, pick one, strangle. Sweet, let's go.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Removal spells, I love them all
they're
day.
great.
Our next card here, we have Structural Assault, 3 colorless, 2 red for sorcery. First, you destroy all artifacts. Then, this card deals damage to each creature equal to the number of artifacts that were put in the graveyard from the battlefield this turn. So essentially, it goes back to us talking about treasures. You can essentially
Hmm.
use treasures to cast this card, and deals a lot of damage. I don't know about, I mean, we have seen Doom Scars. If your deck is relying on a lot of treasure going to the graveyard, I don't think. I mean, you're gonna want it, but if you're relying on your opponent to fuel this card, I don't think that you're gonna want to play it.
Yeah. I love the idea of punishing an opponent for getting greedy with treasure tokens. Like, and that's exactly what this card does. In
Hmm.
EDH, this is gonna slap because artifacts are everywhere. But in standard or historic, I think there may be a home for it. It'll be interesting to see just how many treasure tokens people are generating because the meme around this set is just that everything creates treasure, and we'll see. Like, are all the playables that people are actually bringing to the table the ones that are creating the treasure? Because if that's the case, then structure assault's going to be a great maybe sideboard option. Um, but yeah, I mean, it would be a 5 mana board wipe effectively. The wording on it also is really nice that it gets around your opponent sacking the treasures in response, because as long as they went to the graveyard this turn, it still counts. I like
Hmm.
that. Um,
Yeah, it just ends up wiping their board.
right, exactly.
Either way, they don't really have a choice. Either it goes to the graveyard or they at least get some mana out of it.
Yeah, so I think it's a really cool design on the card. I don't To be honest, I think it's too narrow to really be a staple in standard. But there might be a home for it. It all depends on what meta decks rise to the top. If there is one that really leverages treasure and really leans on it, then I think we'll see Structure Assault like as a 2 of in the sideboard or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, like 1 to 2 of
Mhm.
max type card where you have to want to destroy artifacts, but then on top of that, you have to also want to wipe the board.
Mhm.
So this card it like fits in like a weird deck, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't really think it's like that much of a crazy card. It doesn't really feel rare. I guess the rare of it is it destroys all artifacts. So an ED, someone's gonna slap me in the face and be like, "Well, EDH, you destroy all the mana rocks and then wipe the
Right.
board." So, like, yeah, an EDH this card's great, but if we're talking like competitive Magic, like a tournament setting, don't really think that this is gonna get played too often, especially at the
Yeah.
mana cost.
Agreed.
We have an uncommon here next. This is a part of the cycle of hating on specific colors. We have Torch Breath, X, and Red Instant. The spell costs 2 less to cast. If it targets a blue permanent, the spell can't be countered. It deals X damage to a creature or planeswalker. Um, is this gonna get played in competitive? Do you think? I don't know. Even as like a cyborg card and limited, yeah, I think it's like Dece. I guess it. No matter what, it's an X spell, so you can kill something. But
I think the best space that I can see this, I can see this I can see this as a sideboard card specifically because it can kill Hall the Storm Giant because it gets around the ward by being
mm,
uncounterable. Now you still have to spend a fair amount of mana, but if you're at the stage in the game where Hall the Storm Giant is coming in, you probably have that mana. So I don't know. That's one kind of fringe scenario for it. But I think it's more of a sideboard card for sure. I don't know how many blue permanents are going to be aiming for. Like that's really what it comes down to.
yeah, the multicolor cards. I mean, there might end up being
Yeah.
more, but I agree with you. It's potentially just like a cyber card and limited.
Hmm.
I think you're going to be taking it if you're in red, but not even like crazy high, depending on what else is in the pack. So, I like it, but I know I'm about in the middle of it for limited and about in the middle of it for constructed.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm in pack 2 or 3 and I get past one of these and I'm already in red, all right, cool. I'm not mad. But
Hmm.
pack one, pick one, I'm not even considering it. Yeah,
There are going to be circumstances where you just play it for 2 damage
sure.
because it already costs 2 less.
That's true.
So for
Yeah, it just
either way,
becomes
it's a
shock then.
shock.
Nothing wrong
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not bad. So the next card here up on the list, we have Unlucky Witness. I actually think this card's really good. Human Citizen, 1 red, 1/1. Whenever this card dies, exile the top 2 cards of your library until your next end step. You can play one of those cards.
Mm,
So it's until your next end step. Yeah, I mean, this card just screams, put me in a sacrifice deck.
totally.
Doesn't have any abilities. Um, Essentially just gives you like card selection off the top of your deck. Yeah, I expected to see some play in constructed and limited. A little bit harder to use the ability, just because
Hmm.
you're gonna have to use those cards right away, unless you did this at instant speed. So if you do have like a casualty at instant speed and it's like casualty 1, then yeah, this gets a lot stronger limited. But for my money, it's more of like a constructed type card.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I think depending on the composition of the various sacrifice decks that show up, this could take the place of the Vladarian Epicure. I can see it very easily slotting into that one drop space. The one thing about the Epicure the one thing the Epicure has over Unlucky Witness is the Epicure creates that blood token, which might be relevant if you're using Oni Cult Anvil to get sacrifice action going. You know, you get 2 things to sacrifice, which could be meaningful. But Unlucky Witness gives you access to 2 cards. So
Yeah, it's a
that's a
strong
big
card.
deal.
Lots of
Yeah,
value.
this is really good.
Cheap, efficient card. More 1-drops we need for Deadly Dispute. That's kind of how I feel
Totally.
about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely expect to see that card. Our next card is actually pretty exciting. It's a mythic. We have Urabrask, Heretic Parader, 3 colorless, 2 red, 4/4 Phyrexian Praetor legendary creature. Haste, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play this turn, so essentially you get to draw an extra card every turn. And then in the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, the next time they would draw a card this turn, instead they exile the top card of their library. They may play it this turn. So essentially, you're putting your opponent on the spot where they have to use the card that they drew right then and there, or it's gone forever. If they're playing counterspells, their counterspells do nothing, because they have to play them then and there. I think this card, I'm telling you, the more that I read this card, the better it seems, you know?
I get that. Well, and I think you can also tech with it in cool ways. One combo that is definitely making the rounds on social media is Draneth Magistrate and Historic, because Draneth Magistrate says you can't cast cards that aren't in your hand. And so it just says, too bad, you just don't get to cast the first spell you draw every turn. So unless they have a draw spell in their hand or in their graveyard, you know, that they can flash back, unless they have some way to, you know, unless they have some way to draw additional cards, they're pretty much locked out of the game. So that's mean, and Urabrask allows for that. But you don't even have to go that far. One of the things that I see in Standard, I can see Urabrask in an Izzet deck, like an Izzet control list, running Wash Away. Because Wash Away says if you cast, it only costs 1 to cast if it's countering a spell that it was cast from outside of the hand. So if a card's cast from exile, you can wash away it for 1. Or wash it away for 1. So I think that you could do some really cool things with that type of tech, knowing that they're going to be casting their cards from exile primarily once Urabrask is on the field. I think that's awesome. You can do some really cool things with that.
Yeah, just outpost siege, and then you get to kind of mess a little bit with your opponent as well. Top of that,
Yeah.
the card has haste and okay stats. 4/4 is not bad. Yeah, I mean, I just expect to see this get played in a variety of different decks. Even like aggressive red decks don't care. I mean, it has haste, the body's decent, and then when you start to run out of gas, you just start to draw more cards, right?
Yeah, it's giving you more fuel. Exactly. You were going to run them out that turn anyway. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that I really expect this to get played a decent amount. I kind of agree with what Hearsay said during our spoilers, where in the beginning you might end up seeing this more in the sideboard, and then eventually you'll see this card creep into the main. The main reason being is that it's 5 mana, and as we all know in red, Goldspan is king.
Totally. Yeah, it's really tough to argue with that.
I actually think that might be. Oh no, we actually have a few more cards here. Yeah, we actually do have some cards here. I was like,
yep.
You is like the end, right? Widespread Thieving, 2 colorless and a red enchantment, Hideaway 5. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a treasure token. Then you can pay Wooburg, one of each color. If you do, you can play the exile card without paying its mana cost. So the weird part about this card is that you're actually paying for the card, because you have to spend the mana. So you have to probably just try to find something really powerful, but other than that, it's actually one of the more realistic ones where you just put it out there, you get the Hideaway, and then you just start casting some multicolored spells and you start getting mana back. I mean, yeah, you want to talk about the meme. This is literally the meme card here where, you know, you just start casting multicolored cards and you just keep getting more mana and more mana and more mana, and before you know it, like, you can cast the card that's under it. But the card that's under it better be something that's powerful. I don't really know. 3 mana, do nothing, enchantment in red.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The treasure tokens are very important to make this work, and because of the Wooburg activation clause on this, the headcanon for me for this card is that this is actually referencing Joda from Dominaria falling to a life of crime after some rough after a bad turn in his life, just because he has that Fist of Suns ability. Anyway, it's not a good joke, but I stand by it.
I legit thought it was. I was like looking at the artwork and I'm like, oh, okay.
Is that Joda? No, it's not actually Joda. I want to believe because Mechanically, it functions very similarly. Yeah, I mean, that card better be good that you're hitting, because if I'm spending 5 mana for a 3-drop on my Hideaway, I'm pissed. But at the same time, if I'm using that to cheat out a Hullbreaker Horror, all right, I'm not mad at that.
Hmm.
You could do some cool things with that. So I think it's a cool design. I don't know that it's going to be worth it. This feels more like a jank build around than a competitive, like, real card, you know?
It's interesting because you can do the card at instant speed, so I guess that's
Yeah,
probably why it costs mana.
that's
Just because
true.
you can set up a turn where maybe you cast like a multicolored instant, then all of a sudden you have all the mana, you do it, and then yeah, you just get to cast like some bomb, like a Toxrill or like a Valky,
You know,
Tybalt, excuse me.
the card that wants to be hidden under this, if it was better, is a Meeting of the Five.
Mm.
If Meeting of the Five wasn't quite as restricted in its abilities, like once it resolves, I feel like widespread theming into Meeting of the Five is the curve that they wanted to set up. But I just don't think Meeting of the Five is a good enough payoff, unfortunately. But I feel like what the card that's trying to be wants to fit under widespread thieving.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Um, so yeah, at the end of the day, I don't even know if this is gonna get played, but the fact that you get to make a treasure has some
Yeah,
upside. Other than that, it's not really, doesn't really even feel like a hideaway card,
right.
just because you have to spend the mana for it. Our next card here we have limited, Witty Roastmaster, 2 colorless and a red Devil Citizen, 3/2. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, this card deals 1 damage to each opponent. Seems okay for limited. On rate,
Yeah,
3 mana, 3 power. Seems fine to me.
good for limited and a common that can also do a lot of crazy things in EDH because it hits each opponent. So I can see
Mm-hmm.
that in like a token based deck. You know, I'm gonna play my Avengers Zendikar and like ping everybody on the board for 7 or whatever. Like, all right, that's not bad. Um,
Yeah.
so I think there's a place for it, but I don't think it's standard.
Yeah, it's just more like a limited type card.
Hmm.
Um, so our last card here is Wrecking Crew. 4 colorless and a red Wrecking Crew. Human Warrior. 4/5. Reach. Trample. Yeah, not really much else to say here. It's definitely not a constructed card, and in limited it just seems kind of medium for 5 mana, so yeah, not really much else to say here about the old Wrecking Crew, right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's a
Yeah.
dude wielding a wrecking ball. That's pretty menacing, but the card itself is, it's fine.
There's a devil behind them, that's kind of cool.
That's neat. Yeah.
That's about the
The
most
one
exciting part about that card.
it having reach is relevant, and the fact that it has kind of a sneaky reach too, because when you look at this artwork, it's not very clear that it has reach. So just don't fall into that trap. Don't forget about the reach. This card has reach. That's yeah.
Reach.
There's reach.
This
Just
card
keep an
is a
eye
reach.
on it.
All right. So that goes ahead and concludes our red set review. We want to thank you for making it to the end of the video. Appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. Where can we find you at, Hammer?
Twitch.tv/Amox42 is my main home on the internet, but I also have my own YouTube channel, and I'm on Twitter at Hawks42. And Pizza, how about where can people find you doing your solo shenanigans and everything else that you're doing these days?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Hollywoodpizza. Right now, I don't have a solidified stream schedule, but usually when I'm on, we're doing something competitive that has to do with whatever tournaments were happening in the coming weekend. And this weekend, we actually have a Slice of Historic tournament that's free to play. So all these links are going to be in the description below. And I want to thank you again for watching the whole video. And as always, stay cheesy.